We are born in relationship, we are wounded in relationship, and we can be healed in relationship. Harville Hendricks, renowned marriage therapist. The most painful part isn't that the avoidant left, it's that they came back as if they never broke you. No apology, no sign of regret, just a polite nod, maybe a shallow, "How've you been?" They act like nothing ever happened between you, while you've spent sleepless nights, spiraling with questions, asking yourself, how can someone be this emotionally detached? But the truth is, avoidants aren't cold, they are scared. Scared of emotions, scared of being needed, scared of losing themselves in closeness, especially scared of the people who make them feel too emotionally seen. And what you don't know is this: when they see you again after no contact, something wakes up inside them. They won't show it. But they remember, they feel. They just won't let themselves touch that feeling. Because for avoidance, closeness equals danger, and distance feels like oxygen. And if you don't understand this, you'll stay stuck in the cycle, hoping, hurting, blaming yourself for not being enough. But there is a way out. Not by making them love you again, but by learning to regulate your own nervous system in front of them. Because only when you stand firm do they stop being afraid of you. When an avoidant sees you again after a period of silence, the first thing they do is not smile, not reminisce, not even speak. The first thing they do is scan you, not with their eyes but with a nervous system that has been trained to detect emotional danger. They read you like a child who has learned to sense their parents' moods before daring to speak. Before they say anything, they've already measured the emotional safety level of your presence. Inside their mind, silent questions begin to form. Are you still hurt? Do you still need me? Are you about to pull me back into something close again? Oh, lo. And here's the truth. They're not really thinking about you, they're thinking about themselves. Their heart is operating from an old blueprint. If I let someone too close, I lose control. And if I lose control, I get hurt. That quick, emotionless glance, it's not disinterest, it's a shield activated in milliseconds. You may come forward with honesty, nostalgia, maybe even hope, but what they see is not your words, it's your energy. If you're still hurting, your eyes reveal it. If you're trying to act strong, they feel the tension. Ironically, avoidants don't need you to be cold with them, they just need you to not need them. Because if they sense you're still leaning emotionally toward them, their defense system goes up instantly. That's when they pull back, become distant, or exit quickly, not because they don't remember you, but because they're afraid of what might wake up inside them if you get too close. They don't shut you out because you're not enough. They shut down because closeness reminds them of powerlessness they've spent a lifetime avoiding. But here's the paradox. If you show up calm, grounded, without expectation or emotional pull, they sense it instantly. No one notices the absence of pressure faster than an avoidant. They won't say it, but their nervous system relaxes. They may not hug you, but they won't avoid your gaze. They may not open up, but they'll stay just a little longer. Because for them, safety doesn't come from what you say, but from the fact that you're not demanding they change. That's when their curiosity wakes up. Why are you so calm? What changed in you? Do you still want me? And in that moment, not because of anything you say, but because your energy no longer orbits around them, a part of them feels relieved. Another part feels the loss. They won't admit it, but they remember. Because avoidants never process deep emotions in the moment, only later, alone. They replay the interaction. They remember your eyes, your tone, the calm that made them feel both safe and slightly unsteady. And maybe, just maybe, that absence of pursuit becomes the first thing that makes them want to come closer. For the first time, in a different way. Avoidants don't walk into a reunion with an open heart. They walk in wearing an invisible armor, forged from years of feeling invaded, controlled, or hurt whenever someone got too close. That's why even when they appear calm on the outside, their internal system is in high alert mode. Subtle behaviors like folded arms, blank expressions, avoiding eye contact, or maintaining physical distance are not random. They are all ways to protect themselves from emotion. In psychology, this is a classic defense mechanism in avoidantly attached individuals. They don't deny emotions, but they disconnect from them the moment they start to rise. They don't know how to feel deeply without losing control, so they choose to shut it down before it becomes too much. The irony is, they want connection, but only feel safe when disconnected. So, every gesture of distance is not a rejection of you, but a way for them to rescue themselves from the fear of being swallowed whole. You might think they're indifferent, but in truth, they're overwhelmed inside, constantly wondering, am I being pulled in too close? It is quite devo. Can I escape if this gets too much? Is this person about to expect something from me that I can't give? To them, any sign that you still want something, even a small emotional closure, an apology, or a hug, can register as a threat to their sense of control. And the moment they feel that, they retreat not because you've done something wrong, but because their body has learned to protect them that way. Their breathing slows not from calm, but from trying to suppress a sympathetic nervous system response, the fight or flight urge to not run away. They might check their phone, shift topics, or comment on something neutral. These small moves, to an avoidant, are survival strategies. And the painful truth is, the more you try to ease the tension, the more you try to emotionally connect or make them feel safe, the deeper they retreat into their shell. Not because you're wrong, but because they're trapped in an inner conflict they don't know how to escape. One side is the loneliness they never admit. The other is the fear of losing themselves if they let someone in. What the avoidant will never say, and perhaps can't even admit to themselves, is this: they feel too, but their emotions don't show through words, warmth, or affectionate gestures like you might hope. Their feelings come silently, unexpectedly, and almost uncontrollably. When they see you again, their body remembers before their mind catches up. The scent you wear, the subtle way you smile in silence, the tone of your voice, tiny details they thought were long gone, rush back like an emotional flash flood. They say nothing, but inside, it feels like a soft punch to the chest, silent but undeniably real. It's not romantic nostalgia, it's a nervous system trigger, like reactivating a long-buried emotional file. And just as quickly as the emotion rises, they scramble to suppress it. Avoidants aren't used to staying in deep emotional spaces. They were never taught how to sit in a feeling without being overwhelmed by it. So their default reaction is disconnect fast. They keep their face neutral. They change the subject. They look away. They nod like nothing's happening. But the truth is their entire inner world is quietly shaking. Their body goes stiff, but they pretend to relax. Their heart races slightly, but they act unbothered. They don't hate you, they hate the feeling of losing emotional control inside themselves. To them, emotion is dangerous because in the past, it meant weakness, shame, or abandonment. So now, when your presence reawakens those emotional pathways, they don't allow themselves to pause and feel. They want to shut it down instantly. And that creates a painful paradox. While you may be hoping for a sign of connection, sincerity, or even just a flicker of emotional residue, they're busy fleeing their own emotions. You think they're numb, but in reality, they're overwhelmed, only they refuse to let it reach the surface. The emotional flatness you see is not emptiness. It's a desperate attempt to keep from falling apart. They need you to think they're fine not for your sake, but because they wouldn't know how to handle it if you saw their fragility. So they choose silence. They choose calm. They choose to look away while inside memories flood them like a storm. Don't be fooled by casual lines like, "Long time no see," or "How've you been?" From an avoidant, these aren't greetings. They're emotionally coded tests in disguise. They're not asking to care. They're asking to observe, to watch how you react, how you look at them, how your voice shifts when the past is mentioned. Whether your body stiffens or sighs, every tiny signal becomes data, and they silently study every piece of it, because avoidants aren't really trying to learn how your life is going. They want to know whether you're still an emotional threat to them. Are you still hurting? Are you still expecting something? Are you going to bring up the past? Or ask for clarity they're not ready to give? To them, you're no longer just an ex, you're a wild card of unresolved emotional energy. And since they can't predict what you're feeling, they won't ask directly. They'll drop subtle lines and quietly watch how you respond. If you answer too warmly, eyes lighting up, voice rising, they take note. You still have feelings. If you avoid eye contact, smile awkwardly, or hesitate, they note you might be hurt. If you speak little but sound natural, with steady eyes and no attempt to impress, they sense you've shifted. Avoidants have a unique kind of emotional intelligence. They aren't great at showing feelings, but they're highly sensitive to emotional shifts in others. Not because they care deeply, but because they need to assess whether they're safe. That's why they seem distant or cold. It's not due to lack of emotion, but because they're carefully reading your emotional map. And here's what most people miss. If they sense that you're no longer tilting toward them, not needing validation, not searching their eyes, not rehashing the old story, it doesn't disappoint them like you'd think. It actually makes them exhale in relief. Because for the first time, you're no longer a soft threat. You're a calm presence, someone they don't need to defend against. And only then do they begin to soften. In any encounter with an avoidant, what determines the outcome is not what you say, but the energy you bring. The atmosphere between you isn't shaped by words, it's shaped by your internal state. Did you come to be seen? Or did you show up grounded, with nothing to prove? Avoidants don't trust words. They trust emotional frequencies, the invisible energy you radiate. If you're still carrying hurt, no matter how well you mask it, they will sense it. They won't blame you. But they'll close down, because to them, every strong emotional signal feels like a silent plea. Please understand me. Please give me something. When nated, and that suffocates them, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to respond without losing themselves. But if you show up with a quiet steadiness, not trying to impress, not needing the moment to mean something, not expecting anything, they will instantly feel safe. The absence of emotional demand is what opens the first door. Not because they've changed, but because you're no longer applying pressure. The strange thing is, avoidants don't really resist connection. They resist the instability often hidden inside the desire to connect. And they pick up on it through tiny cues. Is your posture calm? Is your voice steady? Are your eyes searching for something in them? A self-contained person, neither defensive nor needy, neither trying to dominate nor emotionally begging, is often the very thing that piques their curiosity. A quiet curiosity. Why do you seem different this time? And that curiosity is the only thing that can shift the dynamic. Because avoidants don't enter with emotion, they enter with caution. But when they sense you're no longer expecting anything, their nervous system relaxes by one beat. They start to ask more, look longer, stay a little while, even just a little. It's the paradox. The more you chase, the more they run. But when you stand strong on your own, They begin to turn back not because you called them, but because you've shown you no longer need them to feel whole. Avoidants don't process emotions in the moment. They process them later, alone, in silence. And that's when you truly begin to show up for them, not when you're standing in front of them, but after you've already walked away. After the meeting, they seem normal. You might leave feeling unsure. Do they even care? Did that mean anything to them? But what you don't see is, they're replaying everything. A glance you gave them, the way you said, "I'm okay," the clothes you wore, your laugh, whether it had changed or sounded just like before. All of it becomes emotional data they quietly dissect. They can't do this while you're still present. Your presence activates their nervous system too much, keeping them busy managing control, staying composed, not letting emotion show. But once the door closes, once they're alone, unwatched, and no longer expected to perform, that's when the emotional wave begins to rise. They begin to remember, but it's not a romantic nostalgia. They remember the new version of you, the way you didn't seem to need them anymore, the way you didn't ask for more, the way you seemed strangely at peace. And in that stillness, they quietly wonder, why do I feel a bit off? Did they really let go? Did I just lose something I never fully understood? Avoidants rarely feel regret during conflict, but they start to feel it when everything is quiet, when you've stopped chasing, when you're no longer there to defend against. That's when emotion seeps into the corners they've kept locked away. A small ache, a subtle regret, a quiet curiosity. Not loud but real, and hard to shake. They may not message you. They may not admit anything. They may not come back, at least not yet. But that doesn't mean they're not thinking of you. It only means they're feeling you, for the first time, without you being there. There's something avoidants never say out loud, but they feel it deeply the moment it happens, when you've changed. Not the kind of change that tries to look fine or seeks attention, but real, grounded change. Your eyes are quieter, more composed. Your smile no longer hopes for anything. Your voice carries a subtle strength, like you've walked through something painful and made it out whole. And most of all, your energy no longer leans toward them. For the avoidant, that moment feels like a tiny, hidden sting, a soft touch on a place they thought had long been sealed shut. They don't show it, but they feel it. They look at you with a quiet curiosity. They don't understand it logically, but their body registers that you've grown. And while you walk away lighter, they're left holding an unspoken question. What did I miss back then? Your glow-up isn't about being prettier, more successful, or more confident. It's about no longer needing them to feel whole. And ironically, that shakes them more than any pleading ever could. Because avoidants don't fear losing you. They fear losing the version of you they had control over. When they sense you're no longer waiting, no longer reacting to their coldness, they become strangely drawn in. But at the same time, a part of them feels a sharp ache, like they once stood before an open door and didn't walk through. Now the door is still there, but you're no longer the person who stood behind it. They won't say a word. They won't admit anything, but a seed has been planted. Not a desire to return instantly, but a slow, aching pulse of regret without a name. And that's why, after those seemingly ordinary encounters, the avoidant grows quieter, more distant. Not because they don't care, but because they're digesting the emotional impact you left just by being different. Your calm made them realize something they weren't ready to face. You're no longer someone they can lose and expect to find again. Even when the meeting has just begun, even when they have nowhere else to be, the avoidant will often say something like, "I can't stay long. I have to head out soon." It sounds casual, but it's not just small talk, it's a defense mechanism. Avoidants don't just need physical space, they need a psychological exit. They can't tolerate the feeling of being trapped in a situation where emotions might go too deep, too intimate, or too hard to control. So they quietly build an emergency exit in their mind. They need to know that if emotions start to rise, they can leave without feeling cornered. To you, this may feel like rejection, but to them, it's how they keep their nervous system regulated. Only when they know they can walk away at any time do they feel enough internal space to maybe stay a little longer. It sounds contradictory, but it makes perfect sense in the avoidance world. They don't hate connection. They fear losing control inside connection. And when they feel stuck in a long conversation, or held in a deep gaze, or caught in a moment that stirs emotional memory, they panic internally. But they've learned to hide it, so all you see is polite behavior, a soft smile, a gentle excuse, a quick glance at the time. The truth is, avoidants always need a sense of control to survive emotional presence. They can't handle emotional uncertainty, even the positive kind. They need to know that if closeness becomes too much, they can escape. And the interesting twist is, if you don't cling, don't beg, don't react when they signal they want to leave, they often end up staying longer than planned, because nothing makes an avoidant feel safer than not being held back. The freedom you offer them, even if just momentary, creates the conditions for them to stay by choice, not obligation. And in those few minutes, they're actually present. You may have loved them deeply, loved them with sincerity, with a quiet hope that if you were patient enough, kind enough, maybe one day, they would return and stay. But there's something you need to understand. Love cannot heal an avoidant's fear of closeness. Only they can do that when they are ready. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is let go. Not because you stopped loving them, but because you chose to love yourself first. The truth is, you don't need to do anything to make them come back. You only need to become someone you're proud to be alone with. Someone who feels whole, even when they're not chosen. Someone who doesn't need to chase because they've become home to themselves. Because securely attached people don't keep others close through fear. They invite connection through calmness. No begging, no pressure, no games. Just, I'm okay with or without you. But if you choose to stay, come freely. And that may be the most beautiful thing you can give yourself. Boundaries not to build distance, but to protect a heart that's finally learned how to love right. Let your peace be what they remember. Let your light be what they look back on, not because you needed them, but because you didn't, and still stayed warm anyway.